Feminism is to blame for the demise of masculinity. One of the problems with today's society is that it has done away with the traditional role of the male mentor, which has been done as part of an effort by women to curb the aspirations of young men. Men will concur that women have done an outstanding job because of how well they have handled this situation. This is due to the fact that they have handled it so nicely. As a consequence of this, I consider myself to be a feminist because I find masculinity to be repugnant. The fact that males have become more submissive and tolerant is evidence that we have failed to offer them a healthy outlet for the animosity that they feel within of them. Because we are women, we tend to have a higher tolerance for the actions of other women as well as for the challenges and setbacks we face. Even though I don't particularly like Maha, I have to concede that he's right when he says that we anesthetize ourselves with sports and pornographic content. Instead of letting guys struggle, fight, explore, and physically exhaust themselves, we medicate them so they won't act like boys. This prevents them from acting out in inappropriate ways. There is no benefit to us in watching sports on television or playing video games on a computer rather than really participating in such activities. This causes the inherent charm and youthful enthusiasm of a child to morph into the uncertainty of an adult who has had relatively few life experiences from which to draw. We have created a society full of yes men, or men who are sympathetic to feminists and are willing to conform to any demand and outrage made by feminists. This is the kind of man who is so terrified of conflict, commitment, and being alone that he would do anything to avoid those things, and I don't just mean in terms of his romantic connections with women. He is afraid of being alone. He is afraid of being confrontational. When I speak of dedication, I am talking to the decision to take command of one's life, learn who one is and what one stands for, and then work assiduously toward the achievement of that aim. In today's world, moderation is viewed as an alien concept. When we accomplish nothing useful with our time and instead waste it mindlessly playing video games online rather than doing anything else beneficial with it. How many of us walk through life uninformed of the pillars of our culture, such as history, philosophy, art, music, the classics, poetry by Shakespeare, and other manly ideas? How many of us go through life ignorant of our country's founding documents? These books are essential components of our educational program because of their capacity to mold young men into well-rounded and goal-oriented individuals. Shakespeare is something that can be appreciated by everybody, regardless of their interest in language, and the Bible may be read differently by anyone, regardless of the religious or spiritual beliefs that they hold. Because of their ethnicity, many of the most brilliant people in history, such as Aristotle, Plato, Nikola Tesla, Charles Darwin, Michelangelo, Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, Feynman, and Alexander the Great, are falling into obscurity. I am curious as to what proportion of young guys are able to accurately identify every member of the starting lineup of their favorite team. It should come as no surprise that not as many individuals are able to name as many scientists when you consider that males who have an encyclopedic knowledge of the Star Wars world don't have time to read. The loss of culture associated with the Iliad will quicken. Because feminism has prevented men from teaching us these lessons, we do not now possess this knowledge. Because it was unethical to educate young women that logical reasoning should be given more weight than their feelings, complicated concepts have been replaced by writings that are easier to understand. We have placed a bigger focus on sensitivity than we have on honesty. Essays on Dickens tend to concentrate on the author's reactions to Dickens' privilege rather than presenting an analysis of the author's thoughts on Dickens' works. It seems that in today's world, people who wish to help children are viewed as pedophiles and predators, whereas Mr. Rogers was never handled in such a way. In contemporary feminism, it is preached that men are incapable of such feelings and commitments without ulterior motives, but it is impossible to conceive of a more compassionate and caring person than Fred Rogers. We have permitted women to deracinate masculine influence because of erroneous suspicions that any male who comes within arm's reach of a child may be responsible for the child's sexual assault. If you haven't seen the movie The Man Without a Face yet, which stars Mel Gibson, I highly suggest that you do so. Gibson plays the role of Mr. McLeod, a schoolteacher whose student is tragically killed in an automobile accident in the movie. He has isolated himself and is unable to come to terms with the loss he has experienced as a result of the mental and physical trauma he has endured. He does not experience a revival of his interest in learning until he comes into contact with a young man named Chuck Norstad. After watching this movie, the sensible thing to do is select the red pill option. Chuck is making preparations to move away from his mother and two sisters in order to attend boarding school in the hopes of following in his father's footsteps and becoming a pilot in the United States Air Force. The females do not know how to respond to his unbounded enthusiasm, and they are at a loss for words. His mother has a history of marrying multiple times. Because he does not have any positive male relationships, his sisters are unable to assist him, and he does not have anybody else to turn to for direction. The mother is searching for betas, but she is unable to direct Chuck toward them. Even though he is still lacking the teachers he needs to begin learning geometry, Latin, and English, McLeod becomes a companion, a guide, and a teacher to him. This is despite the fact that he is still missing those teachers. He provides other information that is really important. Work ethic can also be defined as the habit of working hard. You are the only one who can control your own wants and needs. How the cultivation of your capacity to reason and think for yourself is the key to understanding the mystery of truth, and why morality and decency are the cornerstones of a manly way of life. Permit me to inquire how many of you may have benefited from having a man like this in your lives at some point. Because many men did not have access to male wisdom and mentorship when they were growing up, we run the risk of producing a new generation of citizens who are fragile, overly sensitive, and compliant if we do not reintroduce the concept of male wisdom and mentoring to young boys. When schools choose well-off individuals to fill the roles of guidance counselors and teachers, what possible benefits might there be for a man in engaging with them? What kind of lessons should a school counselor who is wealthy and supports the death penalty give to a student who was raised in the projects and has personal experience with violence? To put it more clearly, he and she have nothing in common with regard to their interests. He needs the guidance of an experienced somebody who can direct him away from the path that will lead to failure and urge him to focus on his own development. He needs people of this caliber to look up to as role models who won't challenge the authority he has established. He needs less encouragement and kind words and more direct instruction if he is going to develop into a better person. Within the framework of feminism, the notion of a man serving as an example to other men is no longer relevant. Because of that, masculinity is no longer alive. In addition to being a biological state, masculinity is also a practice that one engages in. An established practice that has been passed down from one generation to the next. The bond that exists between a father and a son is one that is quite extraordinary, as it has persisted for millennia. It is the element that holds societies together like glue. Despite what the media would have you believe, it is the appropriate thing for young men to pursue after they have reached the age of manhood. The truth of the matter is that patriarchy and male accountability were the primary factors in maintaining the group's cohesiveness. Experiments and research have shown that when put into a situation that requires them to survive, men are more likely to band together and come up with solutions more quickly than women are, who tend to dispute with one another. It baffles me how women were able to create civilizations or lead tribes when in today's society they can't even take care of themselves properly. I don't understand how they did it. Nevertheless, every feminist worth her salt will tell you that maleness is at the core of all that is wrong with the world. Maleness is at the center of all that is wrong with the world. The concept of masculinity as a social category is being attacked in its entirety here. How could you possibly comprehend the breadth of his unjustified ill will against you? What exactly are you supposed to tell these women given that there is no space for negotiation? Your participation is essential to the success of this initiative. This is the only one that makes any sense. Our only chance lies on ensuring that macho movements continue to thrive. It is not impossible to make up for the ground that was lost. It is possible for us to provide a healthy upbringing for our sons while also combating the increasing insanity of today's culture.